Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Sophia Martimianakis. I'm the editor of PB Buzz, and I will be moderating the session. The format today is very simple. If you have any questions, please save them for the Q&A portion at the end. We look forward to answering them. I'm excited we have the Power Hub team here today to share their expertise on how you can succeed as an asset manager. Joining us is Chief Operating Officer Phil Obendorf, Product Manager Jobin Sidhu, and Business Development Lead Pete Tremblay. Phil is going to be speaking to some of the challenges asset managers are currently facing. Pete will tackle how to approach these pain points, and we'll wrap up the presentation with Jobin walking you through some of the solutions available to asset managers. Then we'll head to the Q&A portion. Let's get started, shall we? Phil, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Sophia. And thanks, everybody, for joining today. We have a slight echo, Sophia. If maybe you could mute, that'd be great. Sorry about that. Really what we're focusing on today is how we deal with a lot of the bottlenecks out there. And what we're seeing out in the industry is really an issue with scaling. With the introduction of the IRA in the US and globally, just the overall expansion, I believe the stats right now are we're expecting a doubling of solar over the next couple of years, but the same amount that's been built over the last 20 years. So we're seeing a massive scaling of the number of sites everybody needs to manage. We're seeing a real shortage of resources, not just that you can't hire them, but training and everything to do with that. And then just generally speaking, information and risk management around sites. So really understanding where all of your equipment is, where your centralized storage or performance information is, and all of that really drives a lot of challenges as you scale. And why is this so difficult? Well, we find that a lot of our customers are lost in spreadsheets. They don't really have any good version control. We're really struggling with, going back and looking at historical data and bringing year-over-year data together, or even worse, when you start acquiring portfolios and bringing that data together from multiple portfolios. That, coupled with the amount of manual work required, really makes a lot of the administrative tasks very difficult. And it's very hard for a lot of organizations also to track some things like their obligations. A lot of those requirements are buried in contracts. They do require a lot of activities in order to stay in compliance, and there really isn't a great single source of truth for that information throughout the organization. So in order to really accomplish that, what do we really need? Well, we need access to data from across many different systems. This could be SCADA systems, historians, monitoring systems, what have you, as well as things like accounting systems. We need to be able to process many activities at once. So obviously we focus a lot on invoicing. So being able to generate thousands of invoices in just a few seconds is a real requirement in a lot of environments. We also need access to updated portfolio information. So really understanding how the portfolio is doing, where we may be losing information, where we may be losing production across the entire portfolio is really important. We also need to be able to report on that information and be able to download that information, whether that's be for executive presentations or for use in other tools. We need to be able to get that information very easy out of the system and also work with it in the system. So what do we look for really when the signs of success? How do you know when you're working well? Well, your sites are up and running, you're getting very high performance ratios, and you're staying compliant. You've taken repetitive tasks like invoicing and reporting, and you've automated those. So we're not really doing a lot of that really detailed work all the time. We're letting the systems do those work so we can focus on the high value tasks of asset management. You also have utilities and processes in order to collaborate very well with your internal team, but also with external vendors, and that becomes very important. And of course, out of all of that work, we really want to be able to get great insights and to be able to act on risks and events that might be happening in your environment. And really what we want to be able to do is scale very well without adding a lot of overhead. We've had, these stats are from one client where they were able to grow their assets by about half, over doubling the capacity without adding additional FTEs, which was a great success. So,
oh, thanks, Phil. Yeah, I'll jump in here. Thanks everybody for joining this afternoon. I'm actually going to talk a little bit about how we get to the point where we're seeing some of those signs of success that Phil mentioned in the previous slides. So the first thing that we want to do is connect to your existing systems. So connecting via API usually to things like your SCADA system, things like your O&M platform, your data acquisition system, your data historian, and even something as simple as a CSV upload to get your data into PowerHub so we can start using it. We have connections via API to over 30 different adapters right now, again, be it one of those or many of those things I just mentioned. And it's a constantly growing list, right? So any system that you have that offers an API, we can connect to it. Bill, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. Thank you. So the next thing that we're going to do once we've connected to your existing systems is start centralizing that data so that you can use it in a meaningful way. And the idea is that PowerHub becomes the single source of truth for your team, for your data, to start finding things efficiently and using them in a meaningful way. So this will be things like us creating a centralized dashboard for your team for a project registry down to equipment level data, project performance, be it technical or financial, and things like obligation tracking that Phil alluded to a little bit, tracking obligations within your contracts and tracking tasks that have to be done with associated with your projects, with those obligations, and with various members of your team. So the idea here is that once that data is centralized, you don't need to be going back to multiple portals for your SCADA system, for your data acquisition system, and bringing in all these different sources of data via sometimes even copy and paste through Excel, which is very prone to errors and can cause issues, down the line. Next slide, please, Phil. Thank you. So once we have that data connected and once we're centralizing it within PowerHub, the next thing we want to do is start automating some of these repetitive tasks. These are tasks that, as an asset manager, you don't like to do. They're annoying. They're not fun for you to sit down and do for 2 hours every day behind a computer. You want to be using your time for more meaningful tasks. Okay, so we want to automate things like invoicing every month for your projects, for PPAs, for time of use, for storage invoicing. We want to start automating all of those processes. And we want to start pulling data from all those sources that I mentioned before to start, displaying KPIs for you on your dashboard related to your projects, so you can again start making meaningful decisions about the data that we have. And most importantly, we want to start using, once you have these automation tools or solutions in place from us, we want you to be able to start to scale your business more effectively. Right. So as you grow, you don't start to have to add so many new members to your team. We're starting to be, another member of your asset management team. Thank you, Phil. So more specifically, how does PowerHub help your team? So basically, our pre-configured and dynamic dashboards are broken down into 3 main modules that Phil kind of again alluded to a little bit earlier. So they are invoicing module. We've been helping companies invoice all around the world for their energy billing for over 10 years now, helping to create, 1 to thousands of invoices for their portfolios, and freeing up again time via that automation for them to do other things with their asset management team. So invoicing module, analytics, so tracking accurately how projects and portfolios are performing. And then our compliance module, which is going to help you track tasks, manage contracts, and make sure that your team is staying, on task to ultimately de-risk your portfolio. So that's it for me. I'm going to hand it over to Jobin, who is going to hop on a quick demo and show everyone a little bit more about what the platform looks like.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. Again, thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. I hope whatever you've shown so far is helpful and insightful for you guys. Before I share my screen, I just want to quickly touch upon, or while I share my screen, something that both Pete and Phil alluded to, which is what PowerHub really is, right? So we are a platform, a tool that would enable you as an asset manager to automate some of the workflows that are repetitive, sometimes redundant, but still highly critical for the daily operation of your business, so that then you can spend time on more important, sometimes ad hoc work that you need to do outside of just issuing thousands of invoices or connecting to 5 different systems, right? So this could be bringing in data from 5 different monitoring systems or data loggers, converting it, standardizing it, and presenting it in that single view within PowerHub, rather than for you to log into 4 different portals to review the data and then do whatever actions need to be performed. Similarly, for invoicing, you may want to issue thousands of invoices out of PowerHub, whether that is PPA invoicing, time of use, net metering, storage invoicing, or even if it is multiple off-taker or community solar invoicing. All of that is available as a solution within the system, which you can then use and rely on the system to do most of the heavy lifting. And then you just have to come in and do some review within PowerHub. So with that kind of setup, what I'm going to talk today about is a day in the life of an asset manager, especially at this time of the month when you are just about to send out monthly invoices or quarterly invoices, and you have an obligation to get them delivered to your off-taker, to your utility by a certain time in the month. So we'll just do a quick walkthrough of that. So here what you see is our standard invoicing dashboard, where right off the bat you see some total count of invoices generated for the current billing cycle, how many are still pending issuance. So these are the invoices that have not been sent out yet for various reasons, to which I'll come back to in a second. You have some revenue numbers. How is the revenue number for current billing cycle versus same time next year? And then the same revenue month over the last 13 months. So this gives a quick overview of how your entire portfolio is doing when it comes to energy invoicing or any other type of invoicing. The pending issuance invoices, I just want to quickly touch upon this. So this is where you now as an asset manager want to make sure that this number 13 should be 0. So all the pending invoices have been sent out and are delivered to the off-taker in a timely manner. Now, there are different ways or reasons why these invoices did not go out. And in PowerHub, you have certain configurations available as the asset manager to kind of manage this. So it could be, a very high-profile portfolio that you operate, for which you always want to make sure that the numbers are accurate and you want to review them before you want to send it out. So there is a configuration available to never auto-issue an invoice. Whereas for other types of invoices like fixed fee or land lease invoices, where it's just like the same dollar amount that are to be issued each month, you generally do not want to do any review, and you just want the system to generate the PDFs and send them out automatically. And then there are some other configurable options available. For example, you don't want an invoice to go out if it is outside of 5% threshold or 2% threshold from the expected baseline value, or the system identifies that one of the data points necessary for the issuance of the invoice is missing, and it stops the invoice from going out, so that you can then come in, review that, and then fix it before it gets sent out. So I'll just quickly touch upon a couple of such scenarios for everybody's experience here. So let's look at this one, because it says total due as 0 for this sunny solar park. So all you have to do is click here. What it does is that then it opens up this separate view of the generated invoice within PowerHub. And now this is where all the information comes together, right? So this is where you see some data coming from the projects area. We have a separate area for the rate management called rate configuration. So some information comes from that area. And then the rest of it comes from obviously our database where we track kilowatt hours and then show it on the generated invoice. So here you see that, we have production numbers, so that's good, but then for some reason total due is 0. So as you scroll through and review the information, you see that this rate information is missing. Now this could be because the rate for this billing period for the month of February is just missing. So you go into the rate area and kind of update it, and then you can reissue the invoice, or you can also type it here, whatever the rate is, and then the system auto calculates the total amount due, and then you can further do the quick review of the rest of the information. And once you're happy, all you have to do is click on the issue invoice and then do another click and then just issue the invoice by sending an email to the recipient for that invoice. And what that does is that it issues the invoice, but then also updates the status, which is pending to now issued, and that is one invoice that has been taken care of. Let's look at another example. So let's go in a different area called Invoices tab. Now, this is where you see the history of all the invoices for your entire organization ever sent out of PowerHub. So you have some quick filters here, like invoices for last 90 days. There are other additional filter options that you can use. Or for now, because of our use case, what we're trying to review here, you just want to review the pending invoices. So the system provides these quick filters so that you can come in and do the action that you want to perform here. And now let's look at another project called Breezy Wind here. Now, in this case, comparing to the previous example I had, there is a rate, there is the data available. So what is the reason for this invoice not going out? Now, for this project, I have a configuration set up in the back where it would not send out the invoice because it's outside a certain threshold percentage from an expected production value. So in order to check on that, you can navigate from here and go to the performance tab here, which is a separate module available. And while this opens up, there are tons of capabilities and KPIs that we track that are shown on the dashboard here. But then for our use case, we will go to this data tab and then look for the data for that project. So I'll just look at daily values. We are reviewing the data for month of February. So it's all there. And then when I hit refresh, I see the daily values for that project. And right off the bat, I see that for the last 4 days of the month of February, the data is missing, it's 0. And because of that, the actual production value was outside the range of the expected, and the system identified that and did not auto issue the invoice. Now here, the reason for this data to be missing could be various reasons, right? It could be that your site has been offline for whatever reasons, or there was no internet, and that's why this data didn't come through. It could be that there was an API issue between PowerHub and the monitoring system, so it just needs to be re-imported into PowerHub, and then that data could feed into the invoicing. Or it could just be that the data is not just available in the monitoring system. So what Pete had mentioned previously, you can also use the CSV import feature and get that data into PowerHub. So assuming now that data has been uploaded, you can obviously go back to the invoices area, go to that Breezy Wind again, and perform the same action of issuing of that invoice. So that's just a very quick high-level overview of our invoicing feature. So now imagine you have reviewed all 13 of these invoices, they have gone out, and your job for the current month is done. Now, you may also have, let's look at compliance. So you may also have your portfolio manager create an obligation within PowerHub where your job, and you have a task assigned to you where your job is to make sure that all the invoices are sent out. So if I come in here, I see that there's this energy billing obligation, which is for monthly tasks. So you can come and click on it. It says at risk. So we will review why that is in a second. And here it says that your obligation as a company is to issue all the energy invoices within the 10 calendar days of any billing cycle. So obviously you have issued those. Today is the 7th. So you are well in time of meeting that obligation. So you can go to a task. Now this is where, as my portfolio manager had assigned a particular task to me to issue all these pending invoices, I can come in here, click on it, and then review the actual task assigned to me. Now, this is where you will see that, what the task is, which projects it was tied to, and all of that. And now, just because we have finished that task within the time period that we had, I can put in March 7th as the completion date, come in here, change the status to completed, and then click Save and Close. And what that does is that it completes the full cycle of, monthly billing from what you saw, like 200 plus invoices that if you would have used some other system, you would have to generate manually, where in this case now, PowerHub was able to take care of most of these invoices which are auto issued, except for those 13 that required some of your attention for further review and issuance process. So coming back to how it started, the idea of PowerHub is to provide certain automation tools like these, where you can auto issue the invoices and kind of get rid of some of the redundant tasks so that then you can work on more important tasks that you have at hand. This is just honestly very quick overview of the application. We do have tons of other features available. So if you are interested, please feel free to reach out and our team will be more than happy to provide a more detailed demo. But for now, that is what I wanted to show. So back to you, Sophia.
Thank you, Phil, Pete, and Jobin. It was really great to learn more about how clients can scale their renewable energy portfolios. With the global renewable capacity set to double over the next 5 years, now is the time to focus on effective scaling. The sense I got from today's webinar is that automation is really the key here. And without centralizing information in a secure data setup, it's difficult to automate successfully. I imagine getting all your data in one place is only the beginning, though. What kind of insights does PowerHub offer asset managers?
I can take that to start with. Yeah, so I mean, again, we talked about that briefly in our demo. The idea of PowerHub is to be this one central place as one source of truth, where our asset managers can come in and basically manage their assets. So something that what Pete alluded to, we do have connectors, as many as 30 different connectors for different monitoring systems, data loggers, and SCADA systems, where we can bring in the data. Whoever has had some technical experience in integrating with all these systems, you would know that it's not as easy. Each system has its own requirements, its own way of sending the data and providing the data through the integration. So we standardize all of that information and present it in this single dashboard view, where you not only can get the entire portfolio or fleet view, but then also we have features available where you can quickly drill down by individual devices, by individual, by a certain time resolution, and look at certain key KPIs like availability data, performance ratio, how baselines or the expected values would tie to the actual production and calculation of variances. So all those KPIs are available out of PowerHub.
Thank you, Jobin. I want to make sure we have time for everyone's questions. So why don't we jump into the Q&A portion? If you have a question, please type it into the chat and we'll get started. Maybe while people are thinking of their questions, I have one more. Does PowerHub have any solutions for community solar at the moment?
Yeah, sure, I can take that, Sophia. Yeah, we absolutely have seen quite a bit of organic growth in community solar, and it's something that we are doing right now. So we do have solutions for it, and I encourage anybody who has any questions to get in touch with myself or Phil or Jobin after the call, and we can definitely talk through kind of your unique needs and how we can help out.
And Pete, what would it look like to get started with a solution like this? What does onboarding look like?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So the onboarding process is actually quite quick, quite easy with PowerHub. So we have a whole customer success team that would start the onboarding process with your team in terms of getting all of your invoice configurations and your projects kind of up and running with us, and then getting you kind of moving on, being able to create all of those invoices and projects yourself to get your registry kind of up and running and get those connectors established as well, as Jobin mentioned.
In your experience, how are you able to tailor to a client's individual needs?
I can take a first stab, and Pete or Phil, feel free to jump in. So as Pete had mentioned in his section, we have almost a decade-long experience in building the invoicing solutions. So obviously there has been tons of learnings in that process, and the way we have or the way we cater to our customer needs, we understand that there are regions, there are markets which have different requirements, and that is why we have this whole configurable options available where our approach is that we will build solutions, based on the region, based on the market, and then roll it out to the rest of the customers as well with, the requirements for that market. And that really helps, not only us to kind of keep scaling our application without having to customize it for one customer, but then at the same time, we get exposure into different markets and kind of build it from there.
Yeah, and I can add to that too, Jobin. Beyond the kind of regional calculations and things like that, we also focus a lot on how we can build our dashboards and some of the invoice design and workflow around that for each client, because every client does have some very unique needs. And although we mostly track the same KPIs in the industry, certain people do focus a little bit more on some more than others.
Good point.
And Phil, who would you say a software solution like PowerHub is well suited for?
Yeah, great question. I can kind of answer that in terms of, who our current customers are. We mostly focus on commercial asset managers. Obviously, we have a broad range of asset managers in our portfolio, but typically it is somebody that is managing somewhere between 5 and hundreds of sites, that is interested in automating. We seem to have the most success with people that have multiple monitoring systems or multiple data sources, because that is a tricky thing out there in the world. And our client sizes range from 6-7 projects to 1,700 projects out there as well. So that's typically the type of customer that we're looking for.
Great, thank you everyone. So I hope today's session has been informative. That's all we have time for today, but if you think of any questions, please feel free to contact the PowerHub team directly. And thank you again for joining us today.